Well, good Sunday to you. I'm meteorologist Lindsay Monroe. Wanted to get you updated in kind of a non-newscast weathercast setting where we can be more conversational and talk more about the specifics of how today is going to play out with this severe potential that we've got setting up for today. The timeline pretty similar to what we've been talking about the past couple of days, perhaps moved up just a little bit. And that's going to be a little bit of a difference and a little bit of a difference when it comes to our primary threats as well. So we're still looking at that 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. timeline, although that has scooted up a little bit. So we're thinking the strongest now from about 3 to 8 o'clock this evening. Primary threat will be damaging wind gusts, and that's been the primary threat this entire time. Although as this is playing out, it does appear that tornado risk as well as that threat of large hail is mainly going to be contained to the far western and southern tiers of the state. And I'm going to show you those maps here in a second. Also, as we get through the day, we could see some heavy rainfall leading to some localized flooding. That's going to be a low wind threat as well. So as we plan out our Sunday and we head into the afternoon, especially if any outdoor activities planned, make sure we're coming up with a plan B. Know your safety plan in case we do get a watch or a warning issue and know how to receive those alerts. Also, keep in mind, we're going to be with you basically throughout this entire process today. We've got team coverage both on air, online, as well as our streaming app at WTHR Plus. So I want to break down what's going on in the atmosphere right now. We've had some occasional rain showers move across the state so far today. Nothing that's been severe, nothing going to be severe this morning. Warm front position to our north. We've got this cold front back to our west. This at one point did produce some severe weather well to our west during the overnight. That has since kind of fallen apart. But what's going to happen as that boundary moves closer to the state? It's going to start to redevelop. And we're also seeing some very strong wind gusts as the wind field in advance of that cold front starts to increase and will push in. Some of those upper level winds going to be a little stronger, and that's what's going to mix down to the lower levels, increasing our risk of those damaging wind gusts. It's also going to act as a trigger for some of these isolated storms to pop up out ahead of that main boundary. Now, we are a part of a very widespread severe threat across the eastern U.S. today. This level 3 of 5, which is that orange zone, that extends all the way from Detroit really down to northern portions of Louisiana. And as far as where the best chance of some rotating storms is going to happen, looks like mainly south of the Indianapolis area. We're talking far southern Indiana with that better chance of rotation kind of right along this boundary as it moves in later today. So this is your tornado risk outlook for today, especially southern Indiana. Although I really think that risk of EF2 plus tornadoes is going to be even a little farther south of the Ohio River Valley. With that being said, as storms start to initiate, there could be some rotational aspects to them that could produce tornadoes. So I want you to still be prepared for some tornado warnings as this isolated storm chance starts to develop this afternoon. And then as this isolated storm threat becomes more of a line of storms, that threat will then become more of a straight line wind event as this forms what we call a squall line. And that would increase that risk of 75 plus mile per hour wind gusts. And this is actually a change from much earlier this morning. The Storm Prediction Center has expanded this really to encompass most of the state of Indiana, kind of under this highest risk zone for that damaging wind gust threat. As far as the hail risk, significant hail would be anything approaching 2 inches. So we're talking golf ball or greater. That would be mainly across far western Indiana into portions of Illinois where those discrete storm cells will first initiate. Likely not to see large hail along a line of storms. That threat usually transfers over to mainly straight line winds. So with that being said, these are your surface wind forecasts. So we get into the afternoon hours today. This is our high resolution weather model kind of showing us where this line of storms sets up. This is about 4 o'clock this afternoon where we could start to see those 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. As this line moves closer to the metro, wind gusts will continue to increase kind of within those thunderstorms. As that line moves from west to east, we will see those gusts again in excess of 75 miles per hour potentially within those thunderstorm supercells. So let's walk you through the latest timeline. Starting over the next couple of hours, noticing that we're really not going to see much between now and about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Hopefully we can keep at least a few spotty showers going and some ongoing cloud cover. That could potentially limit the atmosphere from really recovering adding energy and fuel to these potential storms. But I think we're still going to see just enough of a clearing that'll push surface temperatures back into the 70s, kind of reactivate the atmosphere for storms that will later develop today. Now we're into the 3 o'clock hour, and this is when we will start to initially see some of those isolated or discrete storm cells basically developing off of a main line of storms. And these pose that higher risk of rotation. They pose a higher risk that we could see some hail embedded within them as well, because we've got these individual updrafts that tend to get a little stronger versus if this were all one line of storms kind of fueling off of each other. So that's 3 o'clock today, western Indiana. This will then move closer to the Indy metro. Still at this point, we are going to see some disorganization as far as a line of storms goes. So that does mean we could still see some discrete supercells gaining strength, perhaps rotating, perhaps containing some large hail as we get into that 4 o'clock hour today. But watch what happens after 4 p.m. This leading edge will start to develop into that line of storms, what we call a QLCS, or a quasi-linear storm complex. This is also known as a squall line. You may have heard that before, that term. This often produces things like those straight line winds. And eventually we start to see sections of this line start to bow out. So the leading edge would be where we get the strongest of the wind gusts. We also start to see it pick up in its motion from west to east. It's going to start to move quicker. So I believe that's playing a role in this whole process kind of getting sped up a little bit today. With that being said, again, this is your future radar about 4:30, 5 o'clock this afternoon. This initial line of storms then moves into eastern Indiana by 5:36, but then the cold front's going to move through, so that will once again bring in the initiation of another line of storms still capable of producing those damaging wind gusts. This takes us through 6:30 tonight, then on through about 7 p.m. Eastern Indiana, still seeing the lingering part of that line of storms. But by about 8 o'clock, as we're paused here, most of the severe threat's going to push out of the area. Could see some lingering, slightly stronger storms in southern Indiana. That takes us through 10 o'clock tonight. But after 10 p.m., this is all going to wrap up pretty quick. Push out to the east, and then eventually much cooler air is set to arrive during the overnight and then for the day tomorrow. So again, that primary time frame here, we're still looking at 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. over in western Indiana, 4 to 8 kind of across the central tier of the state. And then after 8 p.m., everything kind of wraps up and it's all going to move out by about 10 o'clock tonight. Then we get into tomorrow, much cooler air settling in. We will spend the day on Monday in the 40s. Much cooler air settling in for one day only. Already by Tuesday, we see more seasonal temperatures take over. 54, dry day on Tuesday. We've been talking a lot, and you may have already seen some chatter about this and another round of severe storms that's going to be possible on Wednesday. So let's talk about it. We've got this warm front that will then lift to our north, allowing temperatures to recover into the 70s again Wednesday afternoon. This is a secondary cold front that will once again pose a threat of some stronger storms as it moves through Wednesday night. On the backside of that system, not going to be a major drastic drop in temperatures like today to tomorrow, but we will be cooler. And we're going to transition from that warmer weather to that more seasonal air mass with some storms. And this is the latest already from the Storm Prediction Center, already looking out to Wednesday. This is a pretty wide swath of the potential of severe storms. That's already a 30% chance that we could see that active weather setting up for Wednesday. So this is the latest timeline. We're going to see some scattered rain Wednesday morning as that warm front lifts through. And then as that cold front approaches, that's going to be an evening event, mainly after about 6, 7 o'clock at night. Front will slide through come Thursday morning. Severe threat comes to an end. So just something to keep in mind as we look ahead of the work week and you're kind of planning ahead for the week. We do have that potential of another round of some stronger storms Wednesday night into Thursday. But again, as far as today goes, we are under that weather impact alert day, again, 2 to about 10 p.m. Primary threat today will be the damaging wind threat, where we could see 75+ mile per hour wind gusts. Can't rule out some large hail, especially in western Indiana. Can't rule out some rotating storms within the initial line as it starts to develop today. Want you to stay weather aware. We're going to be with you again all day long, on air, online, on social media, keeping you updated. Feel free to post some comments in that section. Hopefully we can get back to you very soon, keeping everybody safe for today. But in the meantime, again, make sure to double check WTHR.com for the latest updates.